Capcom jumped into the RPG market in 1993 with Breath of Fire, it came as a big surprise to many players at the time. The company had achieved immense success on the backs of many other types of games, including action platformers and beat-em-ups, so the attempt to capitalize on the RPG market represented a strategic shift. After attracting new fans with the first two Breath of Fire games, it intended to bring its flagship series into the next generation on the PlayStation. Breath of Fire 3 came out on the system in the spring of 1998, just after the Final Fantasy VII craze dominated everyone's attention. Like the previous Breath of Fire games, the main protagonist is Ryu, a member of the ancient Brood race with the power to transform into a dragon. As the game begins, he's encased in a crystal within a cavern. Miners discover him there and attempt to use dynamite to kill him. Failing to do so, however, they only break his shell. He nearly escapes, but is knocked out from a crane and imprisoned. While the miners attempt to transport him away, he manages to break free and transforms into a human as he loses consciousness. He's found by the tiger-like Ray, who takes him in and introduces him to his thievery operation. Ryu doesn't understand his heritage or abilities, and the title's story centers primarily upon his search for identity. I do think parts of the dialogue are awkward, but not as awkward as some of the text in the first two Breath of Fire games. It was a definite improvement over those two, but still not as polished as nearly anything Squaresoft put out at the time. I would even go as far as to call the text too basic and rudimentary too, which is a bit unorthodox compared to some other RPGs designed for older audiences. I just feel like the localizers could have gotten a little bit more creative with what read as mostly stale. The text also scrolls by exceedingly slow on the default setting, and even if you change it to the fastest setting, I still find it a bit slow. All that said, there's some really interesting story concepts here. Subjects related to Ryu's heritage are expanded a great amount, and it makes for a much more enjoyable experience that reaches a mature audience. Friendship, camaraderie, and vengeance are all prevalent themes too, pretty much as you'd expect them to be. But overall, I do think it's a deeper and more interesting storyline than the previous installments. It's a bit annoying how long it takes Ryu to change into adult form though, and I think a lot of the early storyline could have honestly been cut out entirely. Still, the cast of characters is pretty strong. Ray and Gar were my favorites, and both have excellent backstories that added needed flavor to the adventure. Like previous Breath of Fire games, Nina also plays a role here too, this time as the Princess of Windia and member of the Wing Clan. There's also another character that's, well, an onion named Pico who cannot speak. Right. Unlike the first two games in the series, Breath of Fire 3 uses an isometric view, which provides a nice contrast to its predecessors. The sprites are just beautiful, especially many of the enemies. The gigantic bosses look awesome as well. Just check this dude out. And there's tons of baddies that look equally imposing. Tons of colorful detail and shading make the visuals very impressive. You can just tell the developers spent a lot of time making things look really good. Battle animations are on point as well. They look really great, and this is some of the best sprite work on the entire system if you ask me. As far as battles go, it's pretty much exactly what you'd expect from a Breath of Fire game. You can attack, use special abilities, or use items in a turn-based affair. The characters gain unique special abilities as they level, each of which fit into their own niche or archetype. Each special ability expends AP, making their usage very similar to what is seen in most RPGs. Throughout the game, Ryu also finds new genes. When combined, they allow him to transform into dragons of different types. I really liked this system because it encouraged the player to amass more genes and find the most powerful combinations. There's even a way to save combinations for future use, so you'll never forget them. The dragon transformation system was a really fun mechanic that stood out, and it deserves even more praise because it fit well into Ryu's character arc. Breath of Fire 3 also allows your characters to serve as apprentices to various non-player characters you find throughout the adventure. This association grants you certain stat increases when you level, and allows for more character customization in general. Dungeon design is pretty solid overall, but there are still some annoying puzzles. The isometric view also makes it necessary to pan the camera around to see hidden switches, chests, and other things you'll want to notice. It's also worth mentioning that the overworld was done really well too. I thought it had a good aesthetic, and you don't get into any random encounters either. This is refreshing because the dungeons are packed with monsters, and the game errs on the grindy side. The title's soundtrack was created by Akari Kaida and Yoshino Aoki, newcomers to the series that had worked on Mega Man X3. When it came out, the score was polarizing because it featured a lot of jazz and ragtime-inspired tracks. GamePro even went as far as to publish an article saying the music seemed more appropriate for a corporate infomercial than a heroic fantasy RPG. Even still, a lot of the fans really love the music and appreciate it nonetheless. It's definitely unorthodox, but I think it's pretty solid. Breath of Fire 3 was also re-released on the PSP, which featured almost the same game in its entirety, but with a few small changes. If you're trying to decide which system to play it on, it really doesn't matter that much in my eyes. A lot of fans consider this one the best in the Breath of Fire series, and I can see why. It's packed with many hours of great gameplay, has some pretty fun characters, and features a unique system for combining dragon genes. There's a few callbacks and cameos from characters from the previous games too, which will definitely please fans of the series. I do have some gripes with Breath of Fire 3, especially in regard to some of the dialogue, but overall it's a very solid RPG on the PlayStation that deserves to be played by fans. I want to hear what you think though. Is this the best in the Breath of Fire series? Why or why not? Leave me a comment below. If you like my videos, please subscribe to my channel and click the bell below to be alerted upon the addition of new ones. Also, please join my Discord community linked in the description, and consider supporting my channel via YouTube's Join feature to receive member exclusives, such as advanced videos and complete video transcripts.